I went to bed a nobody, and woke up as the mate of an alien royal. The awakening, the recycled air on Helix 7 always smelled faintly of burnt circuits and desperation. Zane Carter wiped the grease from his hands onto his already stained coveralls, staring at the flickering holoscreen that displayed his pitiful credit balance. 3 years on this mining colony, and he was no closer to leaving than the day he'd arrived. His quarters were barely large enough to turn around in. A narrow bunk, a single locker and a porthole that showed nothing but the endless black of space. He collapsed onto the thin mattress without bothering to undress, exhaustion pulling him under like a tide. Sleep came instantly, heavy and dreamless, until it wasn't. Zane's eyes snapped open to find himself staring at a ceiling that shimmered like captured starlight. His heart hammered as he bolted upright, taking in surroundings that were impossible. Gone were the gray metal walls of his quarters. Instead, he lay on a platform surrounded by crystalline architecture that pulsed with soft, bioluminescent light. Where the hell? You're awake. The voice was melodic, carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in his chest. Zane spun toward the sound and froze. She stood perhaps 10 feet away, flanked by guards in elaborate armor. Her skin was a deep, rich purple that seemed to shimmer in the strange light, and her eyes, silver with vertical pupils, fixed on him with an intensity that made his breath catch. Her hair fell in dark waves past her shoulders, and she wore robes that looked woven from liquid moonlight. She was beautiful in a way that transcended anything he'd ever seen. "I am Lady Seraphine Talvera, third princess of the Karathi Dominion," she said, taking a step closer. "And you, Zane Carter, are my destined mate." The words didn't make sense. None of this made sense. "This is a mistake," Zane managed, his voice rough. "I'm nobody. Just a tech from a mining colony. The ritual of souls does not make mistakes." Her expression remained calm, but something flickered in those silver eyes. "During the sacred bonding ceremony, my consciousness reached across the void, searching for the one whose soul resonates with mine. It found you." One of the guards stepped forward, his face twisted in disgust. "My lady, this human cannot possibly be your match. The readings must be corrupted, Captain Theron," Seraphine said without looking at him, her gaze still locked on Zane. "The energy signature is unmistakable. The bond has formed." Zane felt something then, a flutter at the edge of his awareness, like phantom fingers brushing against his thoughts. It should have terrified him, but instead it felt right, familiar somehow. "The High Council demands his execution," another guard spoke, his hand moving to the weapon at his side. "To preserve the bloodline." "The High Council," Seraphine interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp as broken glass, "does not command me in matters of sacred law. This human is under my protection. Any who harm him answer to me." She finally turned to face her guards, and Zane saw it then. The steel beneath the grace, the absolute authority of someone born to rule. The guards bowed, though their expressions remained hostile. When Seraphine looked back at him, something softer entered her features. "I know this is overwhelming," she said quietly, "but the bond has chosen us both, and I will not allow anyone to undo what the universe has woven together." Zane wanted to argue, to demand answers, to wake up from whatever fever dream this was, but as her silver eyes met his, that strange connection flared again, and deep in his chest something answered. His life as he knew it was over. And somehow, impossibly, he didn't want to run. Between two worlds, the palace of the Karathi was a maze of impossible beauty. Crystalline spires rose toward artificial skies, and gardens bloomed with luminescent flowers that Zane had no names for. Everything here seemed designed to remind him that he didn't belong. "You walk like you expect the floor to collapse beneath you," Seraphine observed, gliding beside him through the corridor. 3 days had passed since his arrival, and she'd barely left his side, much to the dismay of her courtiers. "Maybe because my world just did collapse," Zane muttered, tugging at the formal tunic they'd dressed him in. The fabric felt too fine, too delicate for someone who'd spent his life elbow-deep in engine grease. Seraphine paused, studying him with those penetrating silver eyes. "Come with me, somewhere away from watching eyes." She led him through a hidden doorway and down a winding path to a private garden terrace. The view opened onto the cosmos itself, a billion stars scattered across the darkness like diamonds on velvet. For the first time since arriving, Zane felt like he could breathe. "Better?" Seraphine asked softly. Yeah. He leaned against the railing, drinking in the familiar sight of space. This I understand. You miss your old life. It wasn't a question, but Zane answered anyway. I miss knowing where I fit. What I'm supposed to do. He glanced at her. No offense, but being someone's fated mate wasn't exactly in my career plans. To his surprise, Seraphine laughed. A genuine, unguarded sound that transformed her face. Nor mine. I was supposed to bond with someone from one of the noble houses. Someone who understood politics and diplomacy. She moved to stand beside him. Instead, I got a stubborn human who argues with my guards and insists on fixing my personal ship without permission. The stabilizer was misaligned, Zane defended. It was driving me crazy. I know. I could feel it. Her expression grew more serious. The bond allows us to sense each other's emotions, Zane. Your frustration, your fear, your loneliness, I feel all of it. Just as you must feel mine, he did. Beneath her regal composure, he could sense the weight of expectation she carried, the loneliness of her position, and something else. A fierce protectiveness directed at him. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. Fighting your whole court for someone you just met? Seraphine turned to face him fully, and in the starlight her purple skin seemed to glow softly. Because the bond showed me your soul before I ever saw your face. I felt your kindness, your integrity, your strength of spirit. She reached out, hesitating just before touching his hand. And because when I look at you, I see someone who makes me want to be more than just a princess playing politics. Her fingers brushed against his, tentative and questioning. The contact sent a wave of warmth through the bond, her nervousness, her hope, her growing affection mixing with his own confused feelings. I don't know how to be what you need, Zane admitted. Then we'll learn together. Seraphine stepped closer, close enough that he could see flecks of gold in her silver eyes. I don't need you to be Karathi nobility, Zane. I need you to be yourself. That's who the bond chose. That's who I choose. The sincerity in her voice and the emotions flowing through their connection broke through his defenses. Almost without thinking, Zane lifted his hand to gently touch her face. Her skin was warm and impossibly soft beneath his palm. This is insane, he whispered. Completely, she agreed, leaning into his touch. But I find I don't care, neither did he. Not anymore. When their lips met, it was tentative at first. Two people from different worlds finding common ground. But the bond flared between them, amplifying every sensation, every emotion. Zane felt her surprise, her pleasure, her joy as if they were his own. And he knew she felt the same from him. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing harder, Seraphine rested her forehead against his. The High Council convenes tomorrow, she murmured. They'll demand I renounce the bond. And what will you tell them? Her silver eyes met his with absolute certainty. That they can accept my choice or they can find themselves a new princess. Zane couldn't help but smile. You're terrifying, you know that? Good, Seraphine said, returning his smile. You'll need a terrifying mate for what's coming. She was right. He could feel it through the bond, a shadow on the horizon. A threat neither of them fully understood yet. But standing there with her under the stars they both loved, Zane realized he'd fight the entire universe to protect what they were building together. The Heart's Truth. The High Council chamber was designed to intimidate. Towering pillars carved from single crystals rose toward a vaulted ceiling, and the council members sat on elevated platforms, looking down on those who appeared before them. Zane stood beside Seraphine, acutely aware of every hostile gaze fixed upon him. This is a mockery of our traditions. Council Elder Mirith's voice echoed through the chamber. Her deep blue skin seemed to darken with anger. A human cannot bond with Karathi royalty. The ritual must have been compromised. The ritual was witnessed by 12 high priestesses. Seraphine countered, her voice steady, despite the fury Zane could feel simmering through their bond. Each confirmed the authenticity of the connection. The bond is real. Then it is an abomination that must be severed. Commander Vex Morden rose from his seat, a powerful male with crimson markings across his purple skin. Zane had learned that Vex had expected to be chosen as Seraphine's mate, consolidating his military power with her royal status. Lady Seraphine, Vex said, his tone deceptively gentle. We understand that the ritual can sometimes create false connections. No one blames you for this error. Simply allow us to perform the severance ceremony, and we can proceed with a proper bonding to someone worthy of your station. The bond flared hot with Seraphine's rage, but her expression remained composed. The only thing false here, Commander, is your claim to understand sacred law better than our priestesses. My lady, this session is concluded. Seraphine turned on her heel, and Zane followed, feeling the weight of every stare burning into his back. They didn't speak until they reached her private chambers, a suite of rooms that overlooked the palace's heart. The moment the door sealed behind them, Seraphine's composure cracked. She pressed her palms against the crystalline wall, her shoulders trembling. They'll never accept this, she whispered. Vex has half the military council supporting him, and the traditionalists would rather see me dead than bonded to a human. Zane moved behind her, carefully placing his hands on her shoulders. Through the bond, he felt her exhaustion, her fear, her doubt. Then we leave. Find somewhere they can't reach us. I can't abandon my people. She turned to face him, and he saw tears glistening in her silver eyes. But I can't lose you either. The bond. Zane, if they sever it forcibly, it could destroy us both. Then we don't let them. He cupped her face gently. We fight together. You shouldn't have to fight for me. You didn't ask for any of this. No, Zane agreed softly. But I'm choosing it now. I'm choosing you. The words broke something open between them. Seraphine surged forward, capturing his lips with desperate intensity. The bond exploded with emotion. Need, fear, love, desire, all tangled together until Zane couldn't tell where his feelings ended and hers began. He backed her toward the sleeping platform, and she pulled him down with her, their bodies fitting together as perfectly as their souls. Her skin was warm beneath his touch as he traced the elegant line of her collarbone, the curve of her waist. Every caress sent ripples through the bond, doubling and redoubling sensation until they were both gasping. I love you, Seraphine breathed against his neck. I know it's too soon, too fast, but I love you too. The truth of it resonated through every fiber of his being, through the bond that tied them together. From the moment you stood between me and those guards, I think part of me already knew. They came together with a tenderness that transcended physical pleasure. Through the bond, Zane experienced everything from her perspective, the feeling of his hands on her skin, the taste of his kiss, the overwhelming rightness of their connection. And she felt everything he did, creating a feedback loop of shared ecstasy that left them both trembling. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head resting on his chest as he stroked her hair. Whatever happens, Seraphine murmured, I want you to know that you've given me something I never had before. What's that? Choice. She lifted her head to meet his eyes. My whole life has been duty and destiny, but loving you, that's the first thing I've ever chosen just for myself. Zane kissed her forehead gently. Then let's choose our future together, whatever it takes. Outside, the stars wheeled silently through the void, and in the shadows of the palace, Commander Vex Morden set his plans in motion. The revolution would begin at dawn. Shadows of rebellion, the alarm screamed through the palace like a dying star. Zane jerked awake, instantly alert. Beside him, Seraphine was already moving, pulling on her formal armor with practiced efficiency. Through the bond, he felt her battle calm settling over her mind, a warrior princess preparing for war. What's happening? Vex? She tossed him a protective vest. I can feel the disruption in the palace guard frequencies. He's making his move. The door exploded inward. Captain Theron stumbled through, blood streaming from a gash across his temple. My lady, the commander has seized the throne room. Half the fleet has declared for him. He claims you've been compromised by the human bond and are unfit to rule. How many remain loyal? Seraphine's voice was pure steel. Perhaps 40%, but they're scattered, confused. Vex controls the main communication arrays. Seraphine's jaw tightened. Through the bond, Zane felt her calculating, assessing, planning at a speed his human mind could barely follow. Then she looked at him and something shifted in her expression. You said you were a technician on Helix 7. What exactly did you do? Communication systems, mostly. Kept the colony's networks running on equipment that should have died a decade ago. Zane's mind was already racing ahead. You need to bypass Vex's control of the arrays. Can you do it? If I can get to the secondary hub, maybe, but it'll be heavily guarded. Then we fight our way through. Seraphine handed him a weapon, a sleek energy pistol that felt alien in his grip. Stay close to me. Let the bond guide you. They moved through the palace like shadows, Theron and a handful of loyal guards forming a protective circle. Twice they encountered Vex's forces, and Zane watched in awe as Seraphine fought, graceful and lethal, every movement precise. When a soldier got too close, Zane fired on instinct, the bond guiding his aim through Seraphine's combat awareness. The secondary communications hub was a fortress of crystalline technology. Zane dropped into the main console, his fingers flying across controls that were almost familiar despite their alien design. The bond hummed between him and Seraphine, and suddenly he could feel her understanding of Karathi systems flowing into him, merging with his human ingenuity. "I can route around his blocks," Zane muttered, "but I need 15 minutes. You have 10. Seraphine positioned herself at the entrance, weapon ready. Vex's forces came like a tide. Energy blasts lit up the corridor as Seraphine and the guards held the line. Through the bond, Zane felt every near miss, every moment of danger, but he forced himself to focus on the systems before him. There, he found the back door, a maintenance protocol that Vex's people had overlooked. His human perspective saw patterns the Karathi had missed, workarounds born from years of making broken systems function. 5 minutes, he called out. The fighting intensified. Theron fell, stunned but alive. Another guard went down, and then Vex himself appeared, his crimson markings seeming to glow with rage. "Seraphine, this ends now. Surrender the human. Renounce the bond and I'll let you live." "The only thing ending," Seraphine snarled, "is your treachery." They clashed and Zane's heart nearly stopped. Through the bond he felt every impact, every surge of pain and fury. Vex was stronger, more experienced, and he was driving Seraphine back. "Done," Zane shouted, slamming the final command. Across the entire fleet, emergency broadcasts activated, showing evidence he'd pulled from the secure files. Vex's communications with separatist factions. His plans to dissolve the Empire and seize power for himself. The truth flooded every screen, every ship, every soldier's helmet display. Vex's forces faltered, confused, and in that moment of hesitation, Seraphine struck. Her blade found its mark and the commander fell. Silence crashed over the corridor like a wave. Through the bond, Zane felt Seraphine's exhaustion, her pain, her triumph. She turned to him, blood on her armor but fire in her silver eyes. "You did it," she breathed. "We did it," Zane corrected, crossing to her. Around them, Vex's soldiers were dropping their weapons, the rebellion crumbling as the truth spread through the fleet. Captain Theron struggled to his feet, bowing deeply to Seraphine. "My lady, your orders?" Seraphine looked at Zane, and through the bond he felt her question, her trust in his judgment. "Mercy," Zane said quietly. They were following orders. "Show them that you're better than Vex ever was." Seraphine nodded. "Arrest Commander Vex and his inner circle. Everyone else returns to their posts." "No reprisals," she raised her voice. "We are Karathi. We do not punish those who were deceived by lies." The soldiers who'd fought against them bowed, shame and relief mixing on their faces. As dawn broke over the palace, Zane stood beside Seraphine before the High Council. But this time the chamber felt different. The hostility had transformed into cautious respect. "You saved us all," Elder Mirith said quietly. "Human and Karathi working as one. Perhaps the bond was not an error after all." Seraphine's hand found Zane's. The bond was never the problem. Fear was. Fear of change, of the unknown. She looked at him, love shining in her eyes. "But I've learned that sometimes the universe knows better than we do." 3 months had passed since the rebellion, and the palace had transformed from a place of tension into something that almost felt like home. Zane stood in what had become his workshop, a fusion of human engineering and Karathi technology, putting the final touches on a new communication system, one that would connect the Empire's far-flung colonies better than ever before, using principles from both civilizations. "You're doing it again," Seraphine said from the doorway, amusement rippling through the bond. "Doing what?" "That thing where you get so focused you forget to eat, sleep, or acknowledge that the rest of the universe exists." She crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. "It's one of the things I love about you. Also one of the things that drives me insane." Zane turned in her embrace, pulling her close. "Sorry. I wanted to finish this before the ceremony." Today they would officially formalize their bond before the assembled representatives of every Karathi house. Not because they needed validation, but because it symbolized something larger. the Empire's willingness to embrace change, to grow beyond ancient prejudices. Nervous? Seraphine asked, sensing his apprehension through their connection. Terrified, he admitted. I'm about to become a Kyrathi prince consort. Me, the guy who used to steal ration packs from the colony commissary. She laughed, the sound filling him with warmth. You're also the man who saved the Empire with nothing but clever thinking and a maintenance protocol. I think you'll manage. The ceremony was held under the open stars in a garden platform that seemed to float in the cosmos itself. Hundreds attended, nobles and commoners, military officers and civilian officials, even a delegation from Helix 7 who still couldn't quite believe their forgotten technician had become royalty. As Seraphine and Zane stood together, hands clasped, the High Priestess began the ancient binding ritual. Energy swirled around them, visible manifestations of the bond that already connected their souls. The universe brings together those who are meant to walk the same path, the priestess intoned. Regardless of origin, regardless of expectation, the bond chooses true. Through their connection, Zane felt Seraphine's absolute certainty, her unwavering love. And he knew she felt the same from him, the boy from nowhere who'd found everything in the arms of an alien princess. Do you accept this bond, freely and fully, knowing it will tie your souls together across all of time? I do, they said in unison. The energy flared brilliant white, sealing what the universe had already written. When it faded, they stood changed, not in any physical way, but in the eyes of the Empire. Equal partners, bonded mates, a symbol of what the Kyrathi could become. The celebration lasted well into the night. Zane found himself surrounded by nobles who actually seemed interested in his ideas, military officers who respected his tactical thinking during the rebellion, and common citizens who saw him as proof that the Empire could evolve. But eventually, he and Seraphine slipped away to their private balcony, seeking a moment of peace beneath the stars. Having second thoughts, Seraphine teased, settling into his arms. Not even for a second. Zane kissed the top of her head, though I still can't believe this is my life now. Our life, she corrected. Everything we build together. And they had so much to build. New alliances with human colonies, technological exchanges that would benefit both species, a future where Kyrathi and humans worked side by side, learning from each other. Through the bond, Zane felt Seraphine's dreams for their people, and she felt his determination to help make those dreams real. They were different in so many ways, species, background, experience, but where it mattered most, they were perfectly aligned. I love you, Zane murmured, my alien princess. And I love you, Seraphine replied, tilting her face up to meet his kiss. My human heart. Above them, the stars wheeled through infinity, the same stars Zane had gazed at from his tiny quarters on Helix 7, dreaming of something more. He'd wanted adventure, purpose, a place where he belonged. He'd found all of that and more in the arms of a woman from another world. The bond hummed between them, content and complete. Whatever challenges lay ahead, political opposition, cultural differences, the vast complexity of uniting two civilizations, they would face them together, because some bonds transcend species, status, and even the stars themselves, and theirs was written in the fabric of the universe itself.